everyone, Bob Lees around the world. In today's mini lesson, we're going to be exposing another devil doctrine. Now, this is a devil doctrine that I don't actually think we've covered on the channel before. And it's the One West doctrine that teaches that the sons and daughters of Japheth are excluded from Yah's promises because their skin is unclean. Let me explain. So, the One West camps go into the book of Numbers and read about the incident when Miriam was smote with leprosy. And they said, see, she was unclean. She had to be put out the camp, for days, and then they take that and then they also go into the book of Leviticus and twist scripture and hide from particular verses to create the narrative that pale skin complexions on their own are unclean, and that people with pale skin complexions are not allowed to enter into Yah's congregation, and are not allowed in the temple, and unclean, and all these other type of false claims. But we're going to be learning in today's lesson that the whiteness of Miriam is not the same as the whiteness of the Europeans, sons and daughters of Japheth. The white of Miriam isn't the same as the white of Europeans. Europeans are not pale-skinned because of leprosy. Some teach that Europeans, Japheth, are excluded from being able to enter into the congregation of Israel because of their skin tone, saying that their white skin is unclean according to Bible law. However, this isn't correct. Fact 1. According to the book of Enoch, Noah was born with pale skin, and he was considered cursed or unclean. Yep, that's a fact. In the book of Enoch, we learn that Noah was born with pale skin. The book of Enoch says that Noah was white as snow and red as a rose. And the book of Enoch does not say that he was cursed. It does not say that he was unclean. And it does not say that he was leprous, that he was diseased. So all white skin is not the same. But what we're about to learn is that white skin, pale skin on its own, is actually clean. It's the disease that makes you unclean. It's the disease of leprosy that makes you unclean. It's being spotted that makes you unclean. Not if you're just straight up white. Now, what they like to do is go to the book of Numbers and be like, see, it said Miriam was white as snow, and she was unclean, and she was put out the camp. But notice, she was made leprous, okay? She was diseased. And we're going to read about the law, what the law says, and the law is going to show us what the problem with Miriam really was, okay? Because we're going to learn that if she was just straight up white, she would have been considered unclean. Let's get to fact 2. The pale skin wasn't what made someone unclean. It was disease spots on their skin. Because of Leviticus chapter 13, verse 13, it says if the person's whole body is white, they are declared clean. Exactly. You see, the One West camps rip that verse up and try and throw it in the trash can because it exposes this whole false racist devil doctrine. Because what the problem is the disease where a so-called colored individual starts to develop white spots on their skin. That is the problem that the scripture talks about. But it says that if their skin turns completely white, this is Leviticus 13:13 now, if they are white from head to toe, they are clean. It is being spotted that's the problem. So Europeans are not unclean. They are not spotted, all right? This doctrine is completely devil and is trying to exclude people from Yah's promise who are not excluded. Let's keep going. Fact 3. Europeans aren't white because they have a disease. They are white because they have a genetic mutation that makes their bodies produce less melanin, giving them a pale color like albinos. Exactly. So all this disease talk doesn't even apply to the sons and daughters of Japheth anyway, because they're not white because they are leprous. All right, they are naturally white because they have a genetic mutation that causes their bodies to produce less melanin. Not none, less. So they're not sick. They're not diseased. They're not leprous. All right? They aren't white because they have leprosy. So they're not even the same as what Miriam had. So this is really nothing even about them. All right? They're like albinos. albinos are not diseased. They produce less melanin. All right? That's what the European branch of the sons and daughters of Yefeth are like. We've talked about in the Indian-European connection, where the European branch of Yefeth is basically just albino Indians. They're not leprous. All right? Just like Noah was not leprous. He was born white. Now, when I'm saying white, I'm not saying that he was a son of Yefeth. I'm saying he was pale-skinned. He was not leprous. He was not unclean. All right, let's continue with fact 4. Fact 4. It's believed that Miriam had the disease that's known in modern times as vitiligo, which is a skin disease that specifically in black individuals causes large parts of their skin to turn white with brown spots left over from their original skin tone, scattered with the white, making them look like a leopard. And it's these spots that make someone unclean. If you're straight up brown, you're clean. If you're straight up white, you're clean. It's the spots that make you unclean. Fact 5. The law of banishment and exclusion from the temple was directed towards the unclean lepers, the spotted ones, not the pure white clean ones. For example, King Uriah was a spotted leper, and he was removed from the temple. So what happened to King Uriah was he had leprosy on his forehead. He was not completely white. If he was white all over, he would have been clean, and it would have been no problem. But he was spotted because he just had leprosy on his forehead, and he was removed from the temple. He wasn't allowed to be in there. So if he was completely white, wouldn't have been a problem. Note, if Miriam was all white, she would have been clean, not unclean. So basically by using precepts and reading the law, we know that Miriam would have been spotted. Because if she was completely white all over, she would have been considered clean, and she wouldn't have had to be put out the camp. All right? So people read, the white as snow part, and you'd be like, yeah, she was dirty white. But when we read Leviticus 13:13, it tells us that if someone's completely white, they're clean. Let's keep looking more into this. Vitiligo is a perfect example of what the book of Leviticus is telling us is unclean, and what the problem with King Uriah was. These people, according to the book of Leviticus, are not unclean. They're completely white. This is what the scripture considers to be unclean. Brown with white spots. Diseased. You see? This is what the book of Leviticus is talking about. Not that. Context kills false doctrine.